So let's read the constitutional passages regarding the militia. You got the War Powers Clause, and it just says to declare war. That's it. So there's a sentence here, the Congress shall have power. The Congress shall have power to declare war. So Congress declares the wars. If any militias are going to fight any wars, it's because Congress declared for the militia to do so. Congress also has some other powers here. To provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. To provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states respectively the appointment of the officers and the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. There's also some talk here about the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. But let's repeat these words, because when it comes to textualism, it's all about the words. So Congress has the power to declare war. Congress has the power to call forth the militia. What is calling forth the militia? It's not saying to the militia to go do A, B, and C. It's just saying, all right, militia, we need you. And what do we need the militia for? It says here, to suppress insurrections or to repel invasions. To suppress insurrections, any riots that are happening, or to repel invasions. So if we're being invaded, then we're going to repel it. If there is a riot that's going out of control, we're going to suppress the riots. We're going to stop the invasions. That's why Congress has the power to call forth the militia. Now, the states still have power when it comes to the National Guard, at least. The National Guard, for all intents and purposes, are kind of the militia today. They've taken the historical tradition of the militia, even though technically they are not the militia. The National Guard technically is not the militia. But for all intents and purposes, Congress can call forth the militia. So, okay, militia, we're being invaded by goddamn Norway. Norway has invaded us. So get ready, stand back, stand forward, stand back, stand by. Congress has the power to provide for the organizing, arming, and disciplining. To provide for. Doesn't that mean to provide money? And then for organizing, arming, and disciplining. So who gives the militia the guns? Congress. Who disciplines the militia? Congress. Who organizes the militia? Congress. What do the states do when it comes to the National Guard? Well, they appoint the officers. And they have the authority to train the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. But the states have the authority to train the militia and to appoint the officers. This keeps the militia being both a state creature and a federal creature. Because the states pick the officers, the states have to train the militia, but ultimately, it's Congress who calls the war, calls forth the militia to fight that war, who organizes, arms, and disciplines the militia. But they don't train, nor do they appoint the officers. Congress has the power to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers. We got several militia several militia quotes here, okay? The President. The President shall be Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States. Army and Navy, but not the Air Force? What about the ATF or the FBI? What about the Coast Guard? It doesn't say Coast Guard here, it just says Army and Navy. And of the militia of the several states. So they're saying that the President is the Commander-in-Chief of the militia of the several states. when called into the actual service of the United States. That's interesting, because who can call forth the militia? Congress. Congress can call forth the militia. Congress can call forth the militia. And when Congress calls forth the militia to repel an invasion or to press down an insurrection, when Congress declares the war, calls forth the militia, then the president gets to be the commander-in-chief of that National Guard / militia. All right, let's carry forth. Onwards and forwards. We got a couple amendments here. The Second Amendment. Okay, how many of you sons of bitches even know what the Second Amendment says? Even liberals will say, you can't have guns unless you're part of a militia, a well-regulated militia. If you're part of a well-regulated militia, then you get to have your guns, right? That's what the Second Amendment says. Let's actually listen to. Here's the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Let me say that loud enough for the people in the back. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. There is a preface there. There is an operative statement. The operative statement says we have a right to keep and bear arms. We have a right to keep and bear arms. Why? Maybe it's for self-defense. Maybe it's to fight against criminals. Maybe it's to be part of that fucking militia that they were talking about in the beginning. But what's this preface even about? Let's say it again. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. A well-regulated militia. Hey, can you knock it off? Knock it off. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. So, how do we maintain the security of a free state? We got to maintain the security of a free state. What is a free state? Is that America? Or are we talking about Florida? So in order to protect Florida and maintain Florida's freedom, the way we're going to protect the security of a free country such as Florida is we're going to have a well-regulated militia because it's necessary to the security of a free state. That's an interesting sentence. That's a very interesting sentence. Then the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Yeah, the people have a right to bear arms. And then that well-regulated militia means we have a right to join a militia. In fact, it's almost saying it's necessary. In order to secure our free state, a well-regulated militia is absolutely necessary. Are you trying to get your chain caught up again? So the Second Amendment talks about a militia. So we have congressional powers with the militia. We have presidential powers. So Article 1, Article 2, Amendment 2. And then we have Amendment 7. We have Amendment 5. Not 7. Amendment 5 mentions the militia as well. And what does Amendment 5 says? What does Amendment 5 say? No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury. So that means typically in peacetime for civilians in civilian courts, if somebody accuses you of an infamous or a capital crime or a felony, if somebody says, hey, that person's a felon, did you get a grand jury indictment first? No, I didn't. Okay, then you can't say anybody's a goddamn felon until you get that goddamn indictment. You don't know the fucking law, do you? No, you're just a tyrannical piece of shit. You don't know the law. The grand jury is right there in black and white. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury. Grand jury is capitalized. Except, okay, we got some nullifying clauses here. Except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Now I want to point out just the way lawyers like to parse fucking words. So they said except in cases arising in the land or naval forces, comma, or. And the militia, when in actual service,